Here's something most football fans get wrong. They think a club makes money when it wins. Score more goals, lift more trophies, make more cash. Simple, but that's not really how it works. Some of the most successful clubs on the pitch are quietly losing money, some mid-table clubs are quietly printing it, and some of the biggest transfer fees you've ever seen weren't really about football at all. The truth is that modern football clubs are not sports teams that happen to have a business attached. They are businesses that happen to have a sports team attached, and once you understand the actual structure of how they make money, you'll watch the game completely differently. Every club from the Premier League to the third tier sits somewhere on the same basic revenue pyramid. At the bottom, matchday income. Ticket sales, hospitality, stadium food, parking. This is what most fans think of first. And for lower league clubs, it matters enormously. But for elite clubs, it's actually the smallest of the three main pillars. And it's been shrinking as a share of total income for 20 years. In the middle, commercial revenue. Shirt sponsorships, kit manufacturing deals, stadium naming rights, licensing, partnerships. This is where the gap between big clubs and small clubs starts to feel enormous. A club with a global brand can sign a shirt sponsor worth more per year than an entire smaller club's annual turnover. At the top, broadcasting money, television rights. This is the engine. This is where the real structural power lies in modern football, and it's the one most fans understand the least. Understanding these three pillars and how they interact explains almost every major financial decision clubs make. When the Premier League sells its TV rights deal, it doesn't sell club by club, it sells collectively. Every club in the league pools its broadcast rights together and negotiates as one. That single structural decision, collective selling, is arguably the reason the Premier League became the most valuable football league in the world. The money comes in from domestic broadcasters and international broadcasters separately. It's then split between the 20 clubs with a portion distributed equally, a portion based on where you finish in the table, and a portion based on how many times your games were selected for broadcast. The result is that even the club that finishes last in the Premier League in a given season receives a broadcast payment that most clubs in other European leagues could only dream of. This changes the incentives dramatically. Staying in the Premier League isn't just about pride. The difference between finishing 20th and surviving relegation can be worth tens of millions of pounds in broadcast income alone. That's why clubs spend aggressively to avoid going down, and why the term parachute payments exists for clubs that do. When a club drops out of the top flight, they don't fall off a financial cliff immediately. They receive parachute payments, declining annual fees from the league, to ease the transition. But those payments also create a competitive imbalance in the second tier, which is a whole separate conversation. Internationally, the rights deals vary enormously. A league in a smaller market might sell its entire international rights package for what one Premier League club earns from broadcast revenue in a single season. That gap compounds over time. The clubs that have pulled furthest ahead financially haven't done it purely through prize money or ticket sales. They've done it by turning their brand into an asset that generates revenue independent of results. Take kit manufacturing deals. A club signs a long-term agreement with a sportswear company. In exchange for the right to put their logo on the shirt and sell official merchandise globally, the manufacturer pays the club a guaranteed annual fee, plus royalties on sales. The larger the club's global fan base, the larger that fee. For the biggest clubs in the world, these deals run into hundreds of millions over the contract period. Stadium naming rights work differently. A company pays for the right to attach its name to the ground. This is a multi-year, upfront negotiated deal. It doesn't depend on how the team performs. The revenue flows regardless of whether the club wins anything. For clubs that own their stadium, this can be a significant and predictable income line. Then there are tiered sponsorship structures. Most clubs don't just have one sponsor. They have a principal shirt sponsor, a sleeve sponsor, a training kit sponsor, a stadium partner, an official airline, an official logistics partner, an official automotive partner. The list goes on. Each tier is priced differently. Each deal is negotiated separately. Large clubs have entire commercial departments whose job is to manage and expand these partnerships. What separates elite clubs commercially isn't just their size. It's that they've built a global fan base that makes their brand attractive to companies trying to reach audiences far beyond the home city. A club in Manchester or Madrid or Barcelona has supporters on every continent. That reach is what sponsors are actually buying. Most fans watch the transfer window as a story about squad building. Clubs do too. But they're also watching it as a financial story. There are two sides to transfers financially. Expenditure and income. Expenditure is obvious. You pay a transfer fee to sign a player. You pay their wages for the duration of the contract. You might pay agent fees on top. These costs sit on the club's books. But here's where it gets interesting. Under accounting rules that most football clubs follow, transfer fees are not expensed all at once. They are amortized, spread across the length of the player's contract. So if a club pays a large fee for a player on a 5-year deal, only a fraction of that cost hits the accounts in year one. This matters because it means clubs can spend large amounts in transfer windows without those costs appearing as a sudden shock in their annual accounts. It also means the balance sheet can look healthier, or less healthy, depending on how you read it. On the income side, clubs that develop young players can generate significant transfer income when those players are sold. For some clubs, particularly those without massive commercial deals or broadcasting windfalls, selling players is not just a nice bonus, it's a core business model. They identify, develop, and sell. The profit on player sales is built into the financial plan from the start. UEFA Financial Sustainability Rules, previously known as financial fair play, are designed to prevent clubs from spending far beyond what they earn, but the rules have been criticized for entrenching the advantage of clubs that were already wealthy when the rules were introduced. The clubs that can generate the most commercial revenue have the most headroom to spend. Matchday income is the most visible revenue stream. It's also the most misunderstood. Ticket sales are only part of it. The real matchday money for large clubs comes from hospitality, corporate boxes, premium lounges, pre-match dining, exclusive access. These packages cost multiples of a standard seat. They're often sold on season-long contracts. They're less exposed to match results because corporate clients are paying partly for the experience, not just the game. Stadium capacity matters enormously here. A club with a larger stadium doesn't just sell more standard tickets. They have more physical space to build premium hospitality products. This is part of why several major clubs have invested heavily in stadium expansions or rebuilds, not just for the extra tickets, but for the premium revenue tiers that come with modern stadium design. European competition adds another layer. A club that qualifies for the Champions League doesn't just earn prize money from UEFA. They also gain additional home match days, which adds hospitality and ticket revenue that wasn't in the season budget. For smaller clubs, the matchday picture is more fragile. A few bad results, a drop in form, and attendances can soften. For a club with thin margins and no large commercial deals, that matters. This is really what all of it comes down to. Football often looks like clubs are making decisions based on ambition or manager pressure or fan expectations. Sometimes that's true. But underneath most of those decisions is a financial structure, either enabling or constraining what's possible. A club with large, diversified revenue, strong broadcast income, deep commercial relationships, significant matchday capacity, has flexibility. It can absorb a bad season. It can invest in infrastructure. It can offer long-term contracts to players. A club dependent on one revenue stream, say only broadcast income and minimal commercial, is exposed. One relegation, one missed European qualification, one major sponsor pulling out. The financial model can unravel quickly. Owner funding changes the equation. Some clubs are backed by owners willing to inject money directly, absorbing losses, funding transfers, building infrastructure. This can accelerate a club's trajectory dramatically, but it also creates dependency. If that owner leaves, sells, or stops funding, the underlying revenue structure has to carry the weight. Sometimes it can, sometimes it can't. The clubs that have built lasting financial strength are generally the ones that turned early success into commercial growth, use that commercial growth to fund infrastructure, and use that infrastructure to sustain performance on the pitch. It's a cycle. Breaking into it from outside is genuinely hard. So the next time a club signs a player that seems too expensive, or sells a fan favorite that nobody wanted to leave, or suddenly announces a kit deal with a company you've never heard of, there's usually a financial logic behind it. Football clubs are not simple. They're managing multiple revenue streams, navigating league rules, balancing short-term results with long-term financial health, and making calculated bets on where their money comes from next. The biggest misunderstanding fans carry is that good football produces good finances. Sometimes it does, but more often, it's the other way around. Good finances enable good football. The clubs that understand that and build accordingly are the ones that tend to stay at the top year after year, regardless of what happens on any given match day. That's not cynicism. That's just the business of the game.